I am the product of a lineage of beautiful women. My mother's full hips, her hair, her intelligence. My sister's smile, her laugh, her eyes. My grandmother's humor, her paranoia, her attitude. All melt and mold into my being. Their legacy courses through my veins. I am their past, present, and future. With their foundation, I wield the blade of power. With my presence, I shatter any glass ceiling. I am my own future, standing on the shoulders of my lineage.
Love festivals and Caribbean food. So I grew up with this. This was a Sunday morning breakfast. My mother is the essence of Black beauty. She is an example of what light and sacrifice and love and support and pain and grief looks like. My name is Charmaine Lawson, and I am the mother of the most beautiful, smart young lady in the world, Chloe Jordan.
My Jamaican queen, Chloe's mother. I love her. That jerk shrimp, that pepper shrimp. The acceptance that I've had from both of their mothers as a daughter of someone else, it just felt so natural.
Just, when I found out you were a girl, I was on cloud 9. I had my 2 boys, and that was it, I was done. But that girl, oh my God, I was just so happy. I was so happy because I wasn't raised with my mom, and the connection between a mother and a daughter is so important. So my mom came to this country first, and she came for a better life. And once she was able to get secure and get her papers and green card and so forth, citizenship in order, then she came back and got my brother and I. So I met my mom when I was like 11 years old, and that was hard. I was raised with my grandparents. I was raised with my grandparents and my Uncle Raleigh and the village. They raised my brother and I, yeah.
Tiffany's mom, this beautiful Egyptian woman that I thought was Black, has fed me, has fed my soul when I was really, really hungry. And it was close to the holidays, and my family was working. Like, when you come into community and you have the presence of these women taking you in, feeding you, and sharing their lives with you, you can see how that has been passed down to their children. I could go to Tiffany and be like, girl, I'm hungry. And she's like, oh my gosh, come to my house. Her mom, that's a mother.
She is literally like no one else I've ever known. And I like to think about motherhood or just literally raising young girls to become great women. What I think of is who we stand on the shoulders of. And so also in thinking about my mother, I think about my tita, and that is my grandmother.
So my father, he was a mechanic in Egypt. So yeah, they were at work one day, and one of the friends said, hey, there's a lottery to go to America. Let's go put our names in it and see what happens. So of course they did that. They were gonna go to New York or Los Angeles. And the 3 of them chose Los Angeles. And my mom, she was such a good saver. She saved all the money. That's how they were able to leave Egypt. Dang. She had enough money to just barely get, and they were barely making it, like $20 a month. In Egypt was poor. They lived under literally a stairwell when I was first born. And she saved all the money, and that's how they were able to leave Egypt. And when he came to America, that's how he was able to buy that gas station. My mom was literally the foundation.
And to become a mom, wow. So DJ is my firstborn child. And I remember when he kicked for the first time, I had no clue what was going on with my belly. I just remember going back to the doctor. I'm like, man, I'm feeling all these little fluttery things. There's something going on. Something is wrong. He said, it's your baby moving. So then I went on to have Anthony, and by then I knew what those fluttery things meant. Yeah, and then I had Chloe. I found out I was having a daughter. You know, having children has been like the greatest joy, and they made it so easy for me because I really didn't have much hardship with them. They were just great kids.
What makes it all worth it is the beautiful offspring that God gives you these gifts, and you don't realize it until they're older, that these angels that God gave you, they're literally like a gift from God. So you have to cherish them. The best thing about being a mother is seeing your offspring happy and healthy and flourishing in this world.
So our project was ultimately derived from a book titled A Black Woman's History in the United States. When we started to think about Black women and we started to brainstorm, like automatically we thought of our own mothers and just their impacts in our life. And then we thought about all the mothers and all the women, specifically on LMU's campus, who have shaped us and have just been incredible leaders and incredible village mothers.
Every born child has a mother, and we all come into this world more or less in the same way, screaming and crying. Our mothers are all of those who wipe our tears away. Chapter 1, African Motherhood.
Tell me how you did it. Ain't no way I could pay you back. Look here, my plan to show you how I understand. Mom, you all appreciate it.
A mother is a spiritual thing. You don't have to have children to be a mother. A mother is a responsibility to guide. In a sense, I have many mothers. I have had many mothers and will have many mothers.
Womanhood in the Black community means being a lighthouse, being a tree, being something that shades, being something that protects, being something that guides.
First thought that comes to mind is that Black women are our first teachers. They have historically been at the front lines of the education, the empowerment, the disciplining, the nurturing, which to me all encompasses the idea of teaching.
You have to think about who the mothers are in our community. You have your church mothers, you have your biological mothers, you have your cousins who are like mothers, you have stepmothers like myself, who all mothered in different ways.
There is love, and then there's a mother's love, and there's a certain type of all-encompassing sacrifice that love can demand.
Who dedicate time, literally hours before bed, in the rising, where they're praying over our life, praying for our encouragement, our support, our guidance, our resilience. In some way, we all seek out a love that is literally like a love of God. And I think that a mother's love has to be one of the closest things to God's love.
Black women, all I can think of is love. For sons in particular, I was raised by a single mother, and all I can recall is the idea of love. You've heard, I'm sure, multiple times the statement that for a son, a mother is God. And for me, Ball Extreme, it makes sense because it speaks to everything that the relationship between a mother and a son encapsulates. The all-being, the all-knowing, the all-loving. And in the case of my mom, omnipresent. Like if I was in trouble at school, guess who popped up? Stella. If I was hurt at the park, guess who popped up? Stella.
I had the benefit and privilege of being raised by a village of Black women. I had my mother, had aunts. I was a part of a Black women's debutante society, and then ultimately joined a sorority. So I've never had to be outside of the coverage of divine feminine protection.
I think by championing, or at least like cherishing my mother, I also really have to talk about like the other powerful women in my family, like my sister, my aunts, my nieces, my grandmother. So it's like a web of just like nutrition that comes from being a Black woman and having Black women in my life.
My mom, she passed in 2020 suddenly, and that broke my heart. I mean, I didn't, I was lost. Because what I realized is with a Black mother, I had my doctor, I had my chef, I had my encyclopedia, I had my historian. Does it make sense? I had my greatest champion. I've been married 22 years, but that woman's my greatest champion.
The most powerful lesson I've learned from my mother is no matter what, you get up and get on the business of your family.
Do we acknowledge what the mother has endured? Does her past go unrecognized? Is her future not a reflection? Chapter 2, The African Woman's History.
I think I'm no different from any other colored girl who has to grow up and make decisions and live by them. I think we are all capable of tremendous beauty once we decide we are beautiful, or of giving a lot of love once we understand love is possible, and of making the world over in that image if we choose to. I really like to think a Black, beautiful, loving world is possible. I really do, I think.
African history was incredibly important. It wasn't even that there was such a targeted effort to infuse Black history. Black identity was just cultivated because of Black life.
Let's start with the Black women making something out of nothing. All we gotta do is look at Run DMC.
It's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens. Mom's cooking chicken and collard greens.
Mom's cooking chicken and collard greens. And every Black person who was in that era understands, it doesn't say dad. And he goes on to lay out, just this incredible diet of food that we all know is soul food. I still can't call it comfort food. I just can't. I don't want to hear it. It's soul food. I would tell my kids all the time, the Black diet, for the most part, raised Southern whites.
My paternal great-grandmother was enslaved. She had 9 children who were all born into slavery because their status was dependent on her. And she was one of the ones, that family, the LaFall family, were some of the ones that even after emancipation, they were just moved. They weren't told that they were free. They were just moved from North Carolina on into Texas, and they eventually found out. But by that time, they had been working for 2 years still under the guise of being enslaved. They were still enslaved.
For a Black girl being raised in the South, because so much about Black identity was fashioned in opposition to whiteness and to white supremacy.
Maybe from the 1800s up until maybe the 1960s, we were domestics, raising other people's children. So while maybe our children were at home, we were raising white women's children.
I was born in the 1970s, so I'm a 70s and 80s kid. We were taught that our job was to be independent. We were expected to do well in school. We were expected to go to college. We were expected to have careers. And in fact, one of the messages that we got was, don't rely on a man. Now, the counter messaging to that was that because you probably can't count on other people, and that you may not be able to count on the men in your life, right? Even though I had very involved men in my life.
We've been raised to be better, right? Better, stronger, faster, because you have to be twice as good to get the opportunities that an average person gets.
Well, I guess it's because of the amount of responsibility that women get early. I mean, if you're the oldest girl, you're gonna be cooking and cleaning and raising the baby, your brothers and sisters, and that kind of thing. And so you're forced to be more organized and more productive.
I don't think people who are not of color understand how
from very early on, you're very aware of being othered. And it doesn't matter like how loving your home is or your community, how confident you are, how much support you have. From a very early age, it's like I'm a black girl. I'm a black girl from New Jersey. I have always been. And I've known that from the time I remember thinking.
We're the trendsetters. It's ghetto until everybody else catches on to it. When have we not been curvy? Everybody wants to have a big butt. Well, I've been had a big butt. And if you think about back in the day, Sarah Bartman, who was back in the 1800s, she was considered a circus freak because she had a big butt. Now it's trendy. It's infuriating. You know, it's like everybody wants to be us till it's time to be us. How does it say, how the phrase go, you want our rhythm, but you don't want our blues? Yeah, that's not cool. That's not cool.
The question is not merely whether or not she has felt pain, but more so if we comfort her when her heart aches. Chapter 3, Her Traumas and Pains.
I'll tell you what freedom is to me. No fear. I mean, really, no fear. That's the closest way, that's the only way I can describe it. That's not all of it, but it is something to really, really feel. Have you like...
So much of blackness outside of Africa, even blackness within Africa, is predicated by fear, right? We are afraid of natural disaster. We are afraid of certain superstitions. We are afraid of failure. We're afraid of being seen as lesser than. And I also turn to a different black mother, Toni Morrison, who defines racism as a distraction. It distracts you from the real work of living.
I remember distinctly thinking to myself, will things ever change? I mean, I remember like as a little girl, like playing hopscotch. You know, will things ever change for black people in this country? And then, that idealism, as a child, one day, yeah, it's going to be better.
Society as a whole puts so much pressure on black women. And then add motherhood to that. It just gives one more layer of things to kind of concern themselves with.
To me, any definition of passion that does not include a willingness to suffer is insufficient.
I believe that it was early in my motherhood journey that I realized how scary it was to be charged in this world to raise 3 black young men to be divine and to be alive.
I wish that I could trust that my son will make it home, even though he's fully grown. Society does not allow me to do that.
I mean, I remember very early on, like when he was, I guess in middle school, and you're gonna go to the mall with your buddies. Well, how many are going? If it's just like 2 or 3 of you, okay. Well, be careful. Don't put your hands in your pockets. Don't put your, the talk, right?
I mean, I don't know a black man that hasn't had the talk. Not one. It's all of it's like what to wear, what not to wear, what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say to certain people. I mean, where to go, what part of town to go to, what part of town you better not go to. All this stuff. Even I remember even about the old tradition of being home before the streetlights came on. That all came from when there were sundown towns, and you couldn't be past a certain hour, or you might get lynched. I remember in my youth, we had to be home before the streetlights came on, but I don't even think my mother knew why that was a thing. Again, I wish I didn't have to have the talk. I wish I didn't have to have the talk. I wish I could just be like, go ahead, have a good time. See you when you get home. It's not that easy.
My firstborn son, first everything. First went off to college. He got accepted at Humboldt State, now Cal Poly Humboldt. Sophomore year at Humboldt State University, my son was leaving a party and evil met my son at the door, and my son was stabbed and killed.
The black young man was brutally stabbed to death at an off-campus party on April 15, 2017. The case remains unsolved.
These 4 young ladies who were not students, they just lived in Humboldt County. They're residents of Humboldt. They went to the party. One of those young ladies, her cell phone was missing. And as a black student was leaving the party, which the party was majority black because it was for a student at Humboldt. And as they were leaving, my son and his girlfriend and 2 other friends, the persons whose cell phone was missing was shaking everyone down. Where's my cell phone? Empty your motherfucking pockets. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. No, we don't have your phone. We're not emptying your pockets. And she called her boyfriend. The boyfriend came down, who is a chef. His name is Kyle Zoner. He's a chef. He went up, was trying to talk to my son and the friends, and they're like, look, we don't have your phone. Like, control your girl, you know? So a fight broke out. Girls fighting, they're just fighting. Fight broke up. DJ's leaving, can't find his girlfriend. He went back up to the driveway or to the house where everyone was. And Kyle's owner was lurking in the dark somewhere, and he pulled out a knife and he stabbed my son. And Layla Ortega, the one that her phone was missing, as my son is laying there dying, she said, I hope that dies. She said, I hope that dies.
Hard R.
Yeah, and my son died. And if you watch the dashboard camera, it was just they were calling out for help. Help him, help him. All he wanted to do was to go to college, get his education, show his siblings, to say, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. Just set a better example for them. He said he wanted to be an attorney. And I'm like, wow. He wants to go into the field where you protect and you help victims. And that same field has failed him. And as a mom, sometimes I feel like I fail him too. Because I'm like, it's been 8 years. I was going to Humboldt, Tiffany, like twice a month.
Please, anyone, any information that you have that can bring justice to my son, I plead with you to come forward. We have the DNA evidence of Kyle Christopher Zoner.
I was going, sometimes I would go and then go right back. Fly to Sacramento and drove all the way to Humboldt. 5, sometimes 6 hours by myself in the rain, in the snow to fight for my son. But I asked those questions to God. Why am I here? You know, why am I looking at destined for greatness, which he was? You know, why am I looking at this poster with all these folks and people that I don't know marching and protesting on behalf of my son? This is not our life. I remember when Trayvon Martin passed away, DJ was so upset about that, which rightfully so. Everyone, the whole world was, you know. But then when I met Trayvon's mom, after DJ passed, I was just like, now we're part of this club that we didn't even ask to be a part of. How do we manage? How do we cope? The way I'm honoring my son, we have a scholarship in his name. So we're giving students every year, 4 students receive $1,000 from the David Josiah Memorial Scholarship, which my sister Lorna in Humboldt, she started. But one thing I'm truly grateful for is that the university allowed me to walk the year that DJ would have graduated, which was 2019. And I walked for him, and it was the best feeling. 3, 2, 1. This is for you, DJ! It's hard. It's hard. It's hard every day. April will be 8 years since we've lost him, or since he was stolen from us. And I think about him every single day.
Every time there's, you know, another black child that's been killed, it's a trauma.
My grandmother was my rock. And she was very forthright in telling me that sometimes life's just not fair. Sometimes life is cruelly unfair. but I don't let it change who I am or the woman I've become.
Black women should be the first to be liberated. It's very, very important. If Black women are doing well, everyone's going to do well.
Most importantly comes the question, are we there to help her heal? Chapter 4, The African Woman's Healing and Liberation.
Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, wow. There I go.
And you can hear the idea of a dreamer, and that is what Black women, to me, also, though I love them, they're dreamers. You know, they're optimists. You know, it's hard to snuff out, you know, hope for a lot of Black women, and that's in itself is, to me, spirituality.
To young Black women, I would say, protect, nurture, grow, embrace, and celebrate all the divinity that you have been called to be in this world. To understand it so deeply for yourself that you cannot be moved from that understanding and that grounding by anything that you experience in this life.
True freedom for Black women. That's a good question.
It is feminine, it's also queer, it's also gender non-conforming. It is no work, but all money. It is all play, it is all sun, it is all joy. And it's also very, very safe and very, 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 very communal.
So to me, that's an expressed love. That is love is action. That is validation for what they contribute to the Black masses. And so to me, once that is validated and recognized and celebrated, that's liberation.
You need to leave room for joy. You need to leave room for somebody to help you. You don't have to be so strong and so independent all the time.
I think Black women are seen to be like superheroes, like they have to do everything exceptionally well all at once, which is exhausting. I think that's stressful, and I think that Black women should be allowed the vulnerability to admit when they need help and need to rely on members of their community.
I would like for you, for my daughter, for our daughters, to be able to take off the armor. Just be.
Ah, thank you.
Don't get me crying on camera.
This is life force restorative for me. It's everything. I don't know. Y'all just make it worth it. And I literally consider y'all. I know some people don't get it yet. I've just imposed the title of village child. Y'all are my daughters, seriously, in this world.
Hearing everyone's stories and hearing the perspectives and gaining more village mamas and village papas and all of it really has laid that foundation into my transition out of LMU and my transition into the real world, and to be able to show out and be that Black woman.
It made me realize that there's literally just something about a Black woman's love, an African woman's love, because it's so fun. I don't know how there's no way to describe it. And I saw that, I experienced that in a way that these women would talk about the people that raised them.
When I was going out with this girl that my family did not like, my mom said there's something about her eyes, right? I was like, oh, excuse my expression. I hope she ain't getting no vibes. I'm not ready to come out to her yet. I don't want to be kicked out of the house. I don't know how she's gonna react. And she started crying. And she said, I'm just so sad you didn't tell me sooner. Knowing that I could go to her, which I'd been doing my entire life about anything, and tell her that I loved someone and that I didn't have to hide was one of the most powerful moments in our relationship.
I'm like, well, I kind of met somebody. What? And I'm like, yeah, dum. Her name is Maribel Gonzalez. I think that the fork probably got set down. She probably set the fork down. Like, what you, huh? She black? I'm like, no, she's Mexican. And she's like, what? And I was like, you've raised me my entire life to only date black women. And so, yeah, I didn't know how you would respond. And I think it took her breath away. I didn't even see this happen. She said my mom walked over to her and she said she grabbed her face. She grabbed my face so softly. And she said she just looked at me. And she said she just smiled. And then she said to me later on, I see what I like her. I like her spirit. That's how, my wife and I met, and how my mom put the stamp of approval, because if she had, it probably wouldn't have worked out.
My mommy, she loves me so much. I do. You're my world. I love you. I love you.
You see what that says on the back?
Yo mama.
Yo mama.
Oh, it's so cute.
And that's me, as tiny as I could be, her pouring this love into me, because I love animals. That's us at the zoo. And I remember these.
This project has taken up a significant amount of my personal time. I think now I see how much I'm grateful for that, because every time I open up the project to edit it, or every time I hear and rehear and rewatch and re-listen to the stories that everyone else is telling, I'm almost honoring everybody who's made the people that I've been able to encounter.
Dr. Marnie Campbell, I love you, girl. In such a small amount of time that I've known you, you have changed my perspective on support. Dr. Bethune, Dr. Cook, Dr. Grills, and everybody else that I may have forgotten to mention, thank you.
Advice to a daughter would be maybe the first one. It goes like this. To my precious daughter, I have some things to say. I know you may not listen, but I'll say them anyway. The world is full of people with ideas of every kind. Some ideas will help you, and some put you in a bind. Some ideas can set you back and cause a little pain, and some can devastate your life. I'm talking to you plain. The challenge for you, daughter, is to differentiate, to tell ideas to cling to from ideas to hate. The choices won't be easy, but still you'll have to choose. Just follow your own conscience, and you will seldom lose. Don't follow your friends' wishes. It's your life that's at stake. You be the one to choose the path. You say which road you'll take. I'll try to live good values, since more is caught than taught. So when you have tough choices, you'll do the things you ought. That's it in a nutshell. No soapbox will I mount. Enjoy your life, learn all you can, and please make your life count.